Hi, I'm Dan Hegstead. Welcome to my vlog and podcast, Next Steps, Tools for Transforming from Coping to Thriving. This is all based on my book by the same title. It's available on Amazon, obviously as a paperback, but also a Kindle e-reader and an audiobook read by me. The link to the book and everything, maybe you want to hire me as a speaker. I think that's a great idea. All that's on my website, danhegstead.com. Today, I'm going to be starting a series of posts based on part 2 of the book, which is called Your Thinker, an Operator's Manual. That's all about your brain. If you don't understand how this thing works, and sometimes works against you, you just can't thrive. You can't move from coping to thriving without understanding this. It is absolutely essential. Now, I go into depth on the brain and why this is important in episode 2 of the vlog and podcast. So you have to go back and watch or listen to episode 2 before you get into this next series. I think this is number 10 right now, today that I'm recording this, and probably the next 10 episodes will be based on that. So go back, listen to or watch episode 2, and then get into this, all right? So basically, our brain is in many parts, but basically 2 parts that I deal with. There's what I call the base brain, the reptilian brain, the where everything starts. It's that part of your brain that runs your body. But it is also totally involved in keeping you safe. And it doesn't care about reality. It only cares what it thinks is safe, and it's going to reject anything. It's totally black and white. It's either this or it is that. It has no nuance. It doesn't understand, well, maybe. No, it wants everything to be either this or that. And that works against you. You have to go beyond that, engage your higher brain, your thinking brain, and tell your lower brain, just relax, we've got this. Okay, that was not a substitute for episode 2. Go back and do 2. Please do that. Now, today, the first part of this series, getting a little deeper into this, I want to talk about science and the scientific method and how that works, because so many people say, well, scientists don't know anything. They tell you one thing and then they tell you something else. And they do, but you don't realize what's going on there. And that's where you have to engage your higher brain. Your lower brain hears that kind of stuff and goes, see, that doesn't mean anything. The scientists don't know anything. Well, they do. And if you're just going to be stuck in unreality, if that's as far as you want to go. And we're not going to do that. We are going to move from coping to thriving. So just a review of how science and how it works. Science tells us what we know now. And sometimes science is wrong, but also it knows more later. That's critically important that you understand that. Science is never finished. Meteorologist Paul Douglas had said this is like peeling an infinite onion. You just go down layer after layer after layer, and it never ends. And your base brain just gets tired of that. No, it wants an answer now, and I want absolutes. Well, that's not the way it works, folks. And we're going to live in reality. And reality says we don't know everything all the time. Is the sun going to come up tomorrow? Well, it always has, but I do not guarantee that it will tomorrow. I mean, you just don't know that. And your base brain hates that. You have to engage your upper brain and say, well, yeah, that's possible. The other problem is the way media reports on science, and that's another episode. We're going to get into that, but sometimes they just get it wrong. And they tell you the truth, but it doesn't matter. But we'll get into that later. I am committed to truth and reality no matter how much it hurts, or how painful it can be to accept sometimes, and how challenging it can be to get there. And I encourage you to do the same, because living in some sort of unreality or what you wish to be just is not a way to thrive. It's challenging. It's hard to get to reality, but we have to do it. And that's where we are. That's where we are. And science discovered this same thing a long time ago, Renaissance maybe, I don't know exactly when, but people discovered that, we need to know what's going on here. We can't deny the existence of germs just because we can't see them. And there's a billion other examples of that. So science and scientists realize that if we're going to learn what true reality is, we can't rely on our brain because it absolutely wants to know cause and effect. This happened, and then that happened, so this caused that. And that just is not the case frequently. You can't go by observation. You just can't. Juries have found this out, that, I saw blah, blah, blah. The eyewitness testimony is just terrible because your brain can lie to you. You'll tell what you think you saw, but you didn't really see it, and so forth. You need to engage your higher brain and tell your lower brain, just relax. We've got this. So scientists realized they had to take the human factor, your feelings and what you think and what you want, out of the equation. So they came up with what they call the scientific method. Number one, you make an observation. I saw this. I wonder why. You make a prediction and come up with a way to test that, and that's a hard thing to do, to take you out of the equation of testing it. So that's why they come up with these double-blind studies where nobody knows exactly what's going on, and then it has to be repeatable over and over again by people who aren't here, and then you can say, yeah, this is probably true, but you still don't know for sure. And that comes up with more questions and a new hypothesis, and on it goes. Your lower brain hates this. It wants absolute answers without any ambiguity, and it'll just throw away anything that has any question to it. Well, we're going to be smarter than that. Say, yeah, I get that, lower brain. You're doing your thing. Cool, just hang out there. I'm going to engage higher brain, and I'm going to understand how science works. So let's talk about scientific studies. Okay, the news media reports that a study reported this. Well, then the question is, well, who paid for the study? How big was the study? Has it been repeated? And so forth. Because if it's a study of 10 people and it was paid for by the industry, my BS meter starts pegging. But if it's a double-blind study with a huge group of people that's been repeated many times by different groups of scientists, okay, then you need to start paying attention. Scientists are people, they do make mistakes, but they have systems in place to root out those mistakes and those biases and statistical aberrations and get to reality. So that's where higher brain gets engaged and says, okay, what kind of study was this? Who did it? And so forth. Yeah, it's a little bit of work on your part, but that's how science works. So, there's questions. Is butter good for you or bad for you? Or it's bad for you, but now it's not as bad for you. What about eggs? You can have eggs, you can't have eggs. Well, that goes back to so much of the media and the reporting, but also we know more now than we did. Just because something seemed to be true at one time or was true with the information we had, now we've got more information. And that's why when I get into making mistakes, we've talked about that. You can't say, well, I made a mistake, or doing the same thing over and over again, a sign of insanity and all. It's just nonsense. No, you try something, you find out what works. If it didn't work, you try it again, but now you know more. Now you can do things differently. You can't be that simple and simplistic. That's lower brain nonsense. So we're saying, okay, lower brain, just hang in there. I'm engaging my higher brain, and we're going to be in some kind of squishy area here. You get to do that. You get to engage that higher brain and make decisions. Oh, no, you might make a mistake. Well, then you go back and you do it over again. And you do it till you get the results you want in life. Okay, so science learns that there's always more. Answers bring about more questions. That's just the way it is. The other thing is, a thing may be true but irrelevant. Now think of that. In the town where I live, there was a huge debate, went all the way to the State Supreme Court about should the town fluoridate its water. Well, fluoride is really good for your teeth. It's a good thing to do. But there were people that didn't like that. They didn't like the state mandating that you must do it. And then they found some science. Well, here's the deal. Fluoride, well, almost anything, if taken in a certain dose and amount, can be really good for you and life-saving. Fluoride is a perfect example. It's really good for you. But different kinds of fluoride and in larger doses will kill you. And so you can't say, well, fluoride's bad because it'll kill you. Well, just don't do that. Aspirin is another example of that. Any medicine you can think of, a little bit is great, too much will kill you. Well, is it good or bad? Well, it depends on how much you take. So your base brain wants absolute answers, and it's not going to get them. And the fluoride is a perfect example of that. Don't take a lot of fluoride. It's bad for you, but a little bit is just terrific. Another example is vaccinations. Any vaccination you get is statistically overwhelmingly good for you. But there are a few people that'll have a bad reaction or something bad or really bad is going to happen. Well, you can't say because something really bad could happen, I'm not going to do this. That doesn't make any sense. It makes sense to your lower brain, but engage your higher brain. And you understand that 99.999% of the people have a tremendous benefit from this, but that 0.0001% is going to have a bad reaction. That's not thriving, people. You're taking a chance no matter what you do. You're taking a much higher chance of getting sick by not taking the vaccine. Come on, people. We're going to be smarter than that. We're going to engage our higher brain and look for real answers and accept them even if they are uncomfortable. And we use science to do this. So there's a little bit on the scientific method and how we engage our brain. I thank you ever so much for listening or watching. A reminder that my book, Next Steps, Tools for Transforming from Coping to Thriving, links to the where you can buy it on Amazon are on my website. If you'd like to hire me as a speaker, that information is also on my website, danhegstead.com. Thanks for watching or viewing. I'm Dan Hegstead. This is Next Steps, Tools for Transforming from Coping to Thriving.